The invisible prison, when fear of judgment blocks your life. Have you ever caught yourself replaying every word you said? Spent hours analyzing a conversation, trying to read every facial expression from the other person, looking for signs of approval or rejection? If the answer is yes, know that you're not alone. The fear of other people's judgment is one of the most common and silent emotional prisons there is. It affects the way you speak, act, dress, and even the way you dream. But why are we so afraid of being judged? Why does other people's opinion carry so much weight over our inner peace? The answer starts way back in our development as social beings. Since childhood, we've learned that being accepted is a matter of survival. At school, we're taught that good behavior earns praise, while mistakes bring punishment. We grow up shaping our personality to please parents, teachers, friends, classmates. And over time, the fear of disappointing others becomes a distorted lens through which we start to see the world. With every step, you start thinking, what will people think if I do this? Am I making a fool of myself? Will they laugh at me? Will they criticize me behind my back? This internal dialogue becomes so automatic that, many times, you don't even realize you're living more for others than for yourself. The problem is that this constant search for approval comes at a high price, your emotional freedom. When you live in fear of being judged, you start limiting your choices. You hold back from expressing authentic opinions, avoid growth opportunities, shy away from social situations, procrastinate on important projects. All to protect yourself from a possible look of disapproval. But here's the irony, while trying to avoid judgment from others, you end up judging yourself even more harshly. And here's a truth that may feel uncomfortable but needs to be said: no matter how hard you try to control how others see you, it will never be fully in your control. People will interpret you based on their own stories, beliefs, insecurities, and expectations. You can be the kindest person in the world, and still, someone will think you're arrogant. You can be incredibly competent, and yet, someone will call you pretentious. That says more about them than it does about you. The fear of judgment creates a dangerous cycle: the more you try to please, the more you lose your essence. And the more you lose your essence, the more insecure you feel. The result? You drift away from who you truly are and start living as a character. A character that's tired, anxious, and suffocated. So, how do you break this cycle? The first step is to recognize that this fear exists. Give it a name. Understand that it's not a weakness. It's a defense mechanism your mind created to protect you from possible rejection. But this mechanism, which was once useful, is now sabotaging you. From this recognition, you can begin to look at yourself with more kindness. Instead of criticizing yourself for feeling afraid, embrace the feeling. Ask yourself, where does this need to please everyone come from? What am I trying to avoid? What's the worst thing that could happen if someone judges me? Usually, the answer is far less scary than it seems. And here's a powerful reflection. If you keep living to meet other people's expectations, when will it be time to live for yourself? The good news is, change is possible. Not overnight, but with small daily acts of courage and authenticity. Throughout this script, we'll explore together how to strengthen your inner security, how to quiet the voice of self-criticism, and how to create a space of peace within you, even when the world outside is still full of opinions. Because at the end of the day, the opinion that will most influence your happiness is your own. So take a deep breath. This journey of liberation begins now. The root of the fear: why other people's opinions feel so heavy. Now that you've recognized how the fear of judgment affects you, it's time to dive deeper into the roots of this feeling. Because understanding where the problem comes from is the first step toward weakening its power over you. This fear, in reality, is an emotional inheritance we've carried since our earliest years of life. As children, we were taught that being accepted meant being safe. When you behaved the way adults expected, you received affection, attention, and approval. But when you acted outside of those expectations, there came the reprimand, the punishment, or, in more severe cases, emotional rejection. Gradually, your mind started associating. Being accepted equals being safe. Being rejected equals being in danger. This emotional programming became ingrained like an invisible code that today, even in adulthood, continues to run automatically. That's why just one look of disapproval or a negative comment can trigger that tightness in your chest, as if you're being threatened all over again. But now, unlike in childhood, you have the resources to handle this. You just need to learn how to access them. Another major factor is the excess of comparison. We live in an era where, with just a swipe of your finger, you can see someone else's entire life on social media. Happy photos, career achievements, perfect bodies, amazing vacations. And even though you rationally know that this is just a carefully curated highlight reel, your brain compares. And every comparison triggers an internal alarm. Am I good enough? Am I falling behind? Do people see me as a failure? This constant comparison feeds the fear of not being enough in the eyes of others. And worse, it pulls you even further away from your own authenticity. It's important to understand that this dynamic has a name in psychology: social anxiety. It's not just shyness or a temporary insecurity. It's an ongoing worry about the negative evaluations others might have of you. And the more you try to avoid situations where you could be judged, the more this fear grows. Another factor fueling this fear is perfectionism. The belief that you'll only be worthy of acceptance if you're flawless in everything you do. The problem is, the pursuit of perfection is a never-ending trap. The bar keeps moving. Every time you reach one goal, another expectation appears. But here's a liberating truth. No one lives a life 100% free of judgment. All of us, without exception, are interpreted, evaluated, and often misunderstood. It's part of the human condition. What really matters is how you choose to respond to this. You can keep trying to control how others perceive you, a mission doomed to fail. Or you can start strengthening your internal security. And that begins with accepting who you are, with all your imperfections, contradictions, and vulnerabilities. Another powerful exercise is to start observing your own judgments. Yes, because often the fear we feel is a direct reflection of how harshly we judge others. The more critical you are toward people around you, the more you'll believe they're doing the same to you. When you learn to look at others with more compassion, you automatically start relieving the pressure on yourself. And remember, you can't control anyone's thoughts. But you can control how you react to them. From here, in the next parts of this script, we'll explore practical strategies to strengthen your self-esteem, build a healthy emotional shield, and most importantly, find your inner peace, the kind that doesn't depend on anyone else's opinion. Because the freedom you're looking for starts from within. Breaking the cycle: how to stop living for other people's opinions. Now that you understand the root of your fear of being judged and how it has shaped your behavior, it's time to take an important step: breaking the cycle of self-sabotage and building a new way of living. And this change starts with the awareness of one simple, yet often overlooked fact: other people's opinions do not define your worth. How many times have you stopped yourself from doing something you wanted, just because you imagined what others might think? How many opportunities have you missed? How many moments of joy were replaced by anxiety and self-censorship? The truth is, when we live trying to please everyone, we end up pleasing no one, and worst of all, we drift further away from ourselves. The first step to breaking this cycle is strengthening your sense of identity. Who are you when no one is watching? What are your values, your beliefs, your genuine desires? The clearer you are about who you are, the less shaken you'll be by other people's opinions. A powerful practice is to write a list of things that truly matter to you. What makes you happy? What gives your life meaning? What are the principles you want to live by, no matter what others think? This simple exercise helps create a solid foundation for your decisions and actions. Another effective technique is the so-called real importance test. Before worrying about what someone might be thinking of you, ask yourself: does this person really know me? Is their opinion based on facts or just assumptions? Are they part of my inner circle, or just a distant observer? Am I fearing a real criticism or just projecting my own insecurity? Most of the time, when you answer these questions honestly, you'll realize you're giving too much weight to opinions that, in reality, aren't that relevant. In addition, start practicing gradual exposure. That means slowly putting yourself in situations you'd normally avoid for fear of judgment. It could be sharing your opinion in a meeting, posting something on social media that truly reflects who you are, or simply saying no to an invitation that doesn't feel right for you. Every small act of exposure starts reducing the power of fear. You'll begin to notice that, most of the time, people's reactions are far less critical than you imagined. And even when there is some negative feedback, you'll start developing a thicker emotional skin. Another crucial point is working on your internal dialogue. Very often, the harshest judgment doesn't come from outside, it comes from within. Those automatic thoughts that pop up every time you try to step out of your comfort zone. You're going to embarrass yourself. People will think you're incompetent. No one will like what you have to say. When these thoughts arise, pause and ask yourself: is this an absolute truth, or just a story my mind is making up? Many times, that simple question is enough to weaken the emotional impact. And remember, authentic people will always trigger some kind of reaction in others. That's inevitable. But it's also a sign that you're starting to live more truthfully. Those who try to please everyone end up erasing themselves. And living an erased life is the highest price anyone can pay. You don't need to be perfect. You don't need to be flawless. You just need to be real. And being real means accepting that not everyone will like you. And that's okay. Your inner peace is worth far more than temporary approval from someone who barely knows your story. In the next parts of this script, we'll dive even deeper into practical strategies for strengthening your self-esteem and developing the inner confidence that allows you to walk with your head held high, no matter what others might be thinking. Because true emotional freedom begins when you choose to live for yourself, and not for others. Building self-confidence, how to strengthen your inner voice. Now that you've started breaking the cycle of fearing judgment, it's time to focus on something essential for your emotional freedom, strengthening your self-confidence. Because, in the end, what truly protects you from other people's opinions isn't their silence, it's the strength of your own inner voice. But let's be realistic, self-confidence doesn't appear overnight. It's built, brick by brick, through small daily actions that reconnect you with your true worth. The first step is to recognize your achievements. No matter how small they may seem, they are concrete proof that you are capable. Often, the mind tends to minimize what you've already accomplished. That difficult conversation you had, that project you finished, that decision you made even though you were scared, all of these moments are fuel for strengthening your internal narrative of competence and courage. A simple but powerful practice is to create an achievement journal. Every night, write down 3 things you did well that day. It doesn't matter if they were big or small. What matters is training your brain to recognize your own value. Another fundamental step is to learn how to set clear boundaries. When you say no to something that doesn't make sense for you, you're saying yes to your inner peace. Setting boundaries is a practical way to affirm your autonomy. Start with small situations, decline an invitation that doesn't feel right, ask for time before making an important decision, express your opinion even if it goes against the majority. Every time you honor your own limits, your self-confidence takes a leap forward. In addition, it's essential to practice self-compassion. Yes, you're going to make mistakes. There will be days when fear feels stronger. But that's okay. The goal isn't to be perfect, it's to be persistent. Treat yourself the way you would treat a dear friend going through a moment of insecurity, with kindness, patience, and encouraging words. Another valuable exercise is positive visualization. Before entering a situation that triggers anxiety or fear of judgment, close your eyes for a few minutes and imagine yourself handling it in the best possible way. See yourself speaking clearly, breathing calmly, and acting with confidence. This kind of mental rehearsal helps prepare your brain to respond better when the real moment arrives. And don't forget the importance of surrounding yourself with people who uplift you. Toxic relationships, where others only highlight your flaws or constantly put you down, fuel the fear of judgment. Value those who support you, who listen without belittling you, who celebrate your wins without envy. Finally, start letting go of perfectionism. Many times, the fear of being judged comes from the illusion that you have to be flawless all the time. The truth is, no one is. Even people who seem super confident have their insecurities. The difference is that they've chosen to act despite the fear. Remember, courage is not the absence of fear. It's the decision that something else is more important than the fear. And in this case, what matters most is your inner peace. In the next and final part of this script, we'll talk about how to cultivate that peace in a lasting way. How to create an internal space so safe that, even though the outside world stays full of opinions, you remain grounded, light, and deeply connected to who you truly are. Because the life you deserve isn't the one where you try to please everyone. It's the one where you feel proud for staying true to yourself. Finding your inner peace, a commitment to yourself. We've now reached the most important point of this journey, building your inner peace. Not a fleeting peace that depends on circumstances or someone's approval, but a lasting peace that comes from the commitment you make to yourself. Because, at the end of the day, the greatest judge in your life will always be you. No matter how many people praise or criticize you, if deep down you're not at peace with your choices, no external opinion will ever be enough to calm you. That's why it's essential to start cultivating a healthier internal dialogue. Ask yourself regularly. Is this choice aligned with who I truly am? Am I doing this because I genuinely want to, or just to please someone else? The more you connect with your own motivations, the clearer your path will become. Another crucial step is to develop the habit of validating your own emotions. Feeling fear, insecurity, or discomfort in the face of judgment is part of the human experience. Don't fight these feelings. Acknowledge them. Welcome them. And then, consciously choose how you want to respond. You can feel afraid and still act with courage. You can feel vulnerable and still stand strong. Because true emotional strength isn't about never being shaken, it's about knowing how to return to your balance after every fall. One tool that can help you immensely in this process is meditation or any mindfulness practice. Daily moments of silence and conscious breathing help reduce emotional reactivity and increase mental clarity. Even if it's just for 5 minutes a day, this time is a gift you give to yourself. Also, start creating self-care rituals. This isn't a luxury, it's an emotional necessity. It could be a walk outdoors, writing in a journal, listening to calming music, or engaging in a hobby. Any activity that reconnects you with the present moment and reminds you that you deserve to feel well. And when your mind starts sabotaging you with thoughts like, "What will others think?" counter it with more conscious questions. What do I think about this? Does this make sense to me? Will this choice bring me closer to or further away from the life I want to live? Also, remember to celebrate your small victories. Every time you act authentically, even if you feel fear, you're strengthening your courage muscle. Every time you choose your own peace over pleasing someone else, you're building a stronger emotional foundation. And finally, understand this: the fear of judgment will never disappear completely. But you can learn to live with it, without letting it paralyze you. If this content helped you take an important step on your emotional freedom journey, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. That way, you'll receive more videos that support you in living with more authenticity, courage, and inner peace. Turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any updates, and share this video with someone who also needs to hear this message today. Let's build a community that truly values the freedom to be who we are. Thank you for being here. See you in the next video.